The email from Marcus arrived at 11:47 p.m., just as Claire was finally climbing into bed after another 16-hour day at the advertising firm. Need the Henderson campaign revised by morning. The client changed their mind about the entire direction. I know it's last minute, but that's why you're my star account manager. Claire stared at her phone screen, feeling something inside her crack. Not break. It had been cracking for months now, tiny fissures spreading through her resolve like a windshield after a stone hits it. She thought about the dinner she'd missed with her sister, the yoga classes she'd stopped attending, the dating apps she'd deleted, because who had time to actually meet someone when work consumed every waking hour? She thought about Ryan. Ryan worked in the building next door, a sleek glass tower that housed some kind of investment firm. They'd met 6 months ago in the lobby coffee shop that connected both buildings, reaching for the same blueberry muffin at exactly the same moment. He'd smiled, gestured for her to take it, then asked if she'd split it with him instead. They'd talked for 20 minutes that first day, and Claire had been late to a meeting for the first time in her career. After that, their coffee meetings became routine. 3 mornings a week, then 4, then every single day. Claire learned that Ryan was 29, just 2 years older than her. He had a sister in Portland, loved hiking but hated camping, and could quote entire scenes from terrible action movies. He made her laugh in a way she'd forgotten was possible. Last week he'd asked her to dinner, a real dinner, not coffee grabbed between meetings. I'd really like to take you out, Claire, somewhere nice. Somewhere we can actually talk without checking our watches every 5 minutes. She'd wanted to say yes. God, she'd wanted to. But she'd looked at her calendar, packed solid for the next 3 weeks, and felt her stomach sink. I'm completely swamped right now. This huge campaign and my boss, he just keeps piling more on. Can I let you know when things calm down? Ryan's smile had dimmed slightly, but he'd nodded. Sure, of course. That was 5 days ago. She hadn't seen him since. Different schedules, missed connections, or maybe he'd simply stopped trying. Now, staring at Marcus's email, Claire made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. She opened her laptop and began typing her resignation letter. By morning, she'd sent it. By noon, she'd cleared out her desk while Marcus sputtered about notice periods and professionalism and betrayal. By 2 p.m., Claire walked out of the building carrying a small cardboard box and feeling lighter than she had in years. The coffee shop was nearly empty in the mid-afternoon lull. Claire ordered a latte and sat by the window, watching people rush past on the sidewalk. She pulled out her phone and stared at Ryan's contact information. They'd exchanged numbers weeks ago but had never actually used them, always just meeting in person instead. Her finger hovered over the call button. What if he'd moved on? What if those 5 days of silence had been his way of accepting her rejection? What if she'd quit her job for nothing? She pressed call. He answered on the 3rd ring. Claire. Hi. I know this is unexpected, calling you like this. No, it's good, really good. I've been hoping I'd run into you this week. Relief flooded through her. I've been hoping the same thing. Actually, that's kind of why I'm calling. Remember how you asked me to dinner? I remember. Does the offer still stand? There was a pause and Claire held her breath. Absolutely. Tonight. Tonight would be perfect. They met at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Ryan was already there when Claire arrived, standing from his seat as she approached. He wore dark jeans and a blue button-down that matched his eyes, and Claire felt suddenly self-conscious in her simple black dress. "You look beautiful," he said, and the sincerity in his voice made her cheeks warm. "Thank you. You look pretty great yourself." They sat, and conversation flowed as easily as it always had between them. Ryan asked about work, and Claire found herself laughing as she told him about quitting. "Wait, you actually resigned?" "Just like that. Just like that. I typed up the letter at midnight and sent it first thing this morning. I've never done anything so impulsive in my life." Ryan leaned forward, his expression curious. "What made you do it?" Claire twisted her napkin in her lap. "Honestly, you did. Or rather, the fact that I wanted to say yes to dinner with you but couldn't because of work. It made me realize how completely out of balance my life had become. I was choosing a job that made me miserable over everything else that might make me happy. That's incredibly brave. Or incredibly stupid. I don't have another job lined up. My savings will last maybe 3 months if I'm careful. You'll find something. Someone with your work ethic and talent. Companies will be fighting over you." They ordered food, and the conversation drifted to other topics. Ryan talked about growing up in Boston, his father's hardware store, his mother's garden that took over their entire backyard. Claire shared stories about her childhood in Ohio, her parents' bookstore, her decision to move to New York 5 years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. "Do you ever regret it?" Ryan asked. "Moving here? Not even for a second. This city, for all its chaos and expense and impossible standards, it feels like home in a way Ohio never did. What about you? Do you like what you do?" Ryan's expression shifted, becoming guarded. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I work in finance, investments, acquisitions, that sort of thing. It's not exactly what I planned to do with my life, but it's where I ended up." "What did you plan to do?" "Architecture, actually. I have a degree in it. Spent 4 years studying design and structure, and the way buildings can shape how people interact with space. Then I graduated during a recession, couldn't find work, and ended up taking a job with an investment firm just to pay the bills. That was 6 years ago." There was something wistful in his voice, a longing for a path not taken. Claire reached across the table and touched his hand. "It's not too late, you know, to go back to it." Ryan looked at their hands, then up at her face. "Maybe not. Lately I've been thinking about a lot of changes." The rest of dinner passed in a blur of good food and better conversation. They shared tiramisu for dessert, their spoons occasionally clashing as they went for the same bite. When the check came, Ryan insisted on paying. "Let me at least split it," Claire protested. "Next time, you can take me somewhere and pay for everything." "Next time." Ryan stood and offered his hand to help her up. "I'm hoping there will be a lot of next times." They walked through the city together, heading nowhere in particular. The spring air was perfect, cool enough to be comfortable but warm enough that Claire didn't need the jacket she'd brought. They wandered through Washington Square Park, watching street performers and chess players and students sprawled on blankets. "Tell me something about yourself that I don't know," Ryan said as they sat on a bench near the fountain. "Like what?" "Anything, something real." Claire thought for a moment. "I'm terrified right now. About quitting my job, about my future, about the fact that I just blew up my entire stable life on a whim. But I'm also more excited than I've been in years." "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense. My turn, please. I haven't been this interested in someone in a very long time, maybe ever. These past 6 months, having coffee with you, it became the best part of my day. When you said you were too busy for dinner, I thought I'd misread everything between us." Claire's heart hammered in her chest. "You didn't misread anything." Ryan turned to face her fully. "No. No, I was just too caught up in my own stress to see what was right in front of me." He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, almost tentative. "And what's in front of you now?" "Someone I'd really like to kiss." Ryan smiled, and then he was kissing her, his hand cupping her cheek as her fingers curled into the front of his shirt. The kiss was soft and sweet and made Claire feel like she was falling, but in the best possible way. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. "I should probably tell you something," he said quietly. "Okay. I'm not exactly who you think I am." Claire's stomach dropped. "You're married." "What? No, God, no, nothing like that. I'm completely single, I promise." "Then what?" Ryan pulled back, running a hand through his hair. "The investment firm I work for, I don't just work there, I own it. Along with several other companies. Claire, I'm not just some guy who works in finance. I'm fairly wealthy." She stared at him. "How wealthy are we talking?" "Billionaire wealthy." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "You're joking." "I'm not. My name is Ryan Whitmore. You can Google me if you want." Claire pulled out her phone and typed his name. The results filled her screen immediately. Forbes articles, business profiles, society page photos. Ryan Whitmore, 31-year-old CEO of Whitmore Holdings, estimated net worth of $3.7 billion. She looked from her phone to his face and back again. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because when I'm with you, I'm just Ryan. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the guy everyone wants something from. You met me in a coffee shop fighting over a muffin. You didn't see dollar signs or opportunities, you just saw me. I don't know what to say. Say you're not upset. Say this doesn't change anything between us." Claire looked at him, really looked at him. Same blue eyes, same slightly crooked smile, same man who made her laugh and listened when she talked and kissed her like she was precious. "It doesn't change anything," she said finally. "Except now I'm definitely not letting you pay for every date. Billionaire or not, we're splitting checks." Ryan laughed, the tension breaking. "Deal." They talked for another hour. Ryan explaining how he'd built his company from a small investment firm into a holdings company with interests in real estate, technology, and renewable energy. How the money had come gradually, then all at once. How it had changed his relationships with nearly everyone in his life. "People treat you differently when they know," he said. "They either want something, or they're intimidated, or they assume you're some kind of heartless corporate shark. That's part of why I asked you out in the first place. You had no idea who I was, and you still chose to spend time with me. I chose to spend time with you because you're funny and kind and you actually listen when I talk. The money doesn't matter to me, Ryan. I know. That's what makes you extraordinary." He walked her home to her apartment in Chelsea, holding her hand the entire way. At her door, he kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. "Can I see you tomorrow?" he asked. "I literally have nothing but free time now, remember?" "Good, I'll pick you up at 10. Wear comfortable shoes." The next morning, Ryan arrived in a black SUV driven by a quiet man he introduced as James. Claire climbed in, curious and excited. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." They drove north out of the city, crossing into Westchester County. The buildings gave way to trees, the noise to silence. After about an hour, James turned onto a private drive that wound through dense forest before opening onto a sprawling property overlooking the Hudson River. "What is this place?" Claire asked as they pulled up to a beautiful stone and glass house. "Mine. Well, one of mine. I bought it 2 years ago as a weekend retreat, but haven't spent nearly enough time here. The house was stunning. All clean lines and natural materials that seemed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the river and mountains beyond. Ryan gave her a tour, showing her the open-plan living spaces, the chef's kitchen, the library lined with books, the master bedroom with its fireplace and private balcony. "This is incredible," Claire said, standing on the balcony and breathing in the fresh air. "I wanted you to see it, to understand more about my life, I guess. The city, the offices, the meetings, that's all real. But this is real too. This is where I come when I need to remember who I am underneath all the rest." They spent the day hiking trails on his property, having lunch on the terrace, talking about everything and nothing. Ryan asked about her dreams beyond advertising, and Claire found herself opening up about ideas she'd barely articulated to herself. "I always thought I might write someday. Stories, maybe a novel. I studied English in college before switching to marketing because it seemed more practical. You should write. I haven't written anything creative in years. Then start now. You've got the time." It sounded so simple when he said it. Maybe it could be. That evening, James drove them back to the city. Ryan walked Claire to her door again, and this time when he kissed her goodnight, she almost invited him inside. Almost. But something held her back, some instinct that told her to take this slow, to let it build naturally. "Tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow," he confirmed. The days that followed developed a rhythm. Ryan had meetings and conference calls, but he rearranged his schedule to spend mornings and evenings with Claire. They explored the city together, finding hidden gardens and hole-in-the-wall restaurants. They went to a Yankees game where Ryan ate hot dogs and drank beer and cheered like any other fan. They visited museums and walked the High Line and had picnics in Central Park. Claire started writing. Just a little at first, 30 minutes each morning before Ryan picked her up. But the words came easier than she'd expected. A story taking shape about a woman who leaves everything familiar to find out who she really is. 2 weeks into their relationship, Ryan's sister came to visit from Portland. Meg was 26, warm and funny and instantly welcoming. "So you're the one who's had my brother walking around with that dopey smile," she said when Ryan introduced them over brunch. "Meg," Ryan warned. "What? It's adorable. I've never seen you like this with anyone." "I like her already," Claire said, and Meg laughed. The three of them spent the day together, and Claire loved watching Ryan interact with his sister. He was relaxed, teasing, protective without being overbearing. They clearly adored each other. Later, when Ryan excused himself to take a phone call, Meg leaned across the table toward Claire. "He's really crazy about you, you know. I'm pretty crazy about him too." "Good. Because I've watched too many people try to date him for his money or his connections. It made him guarded. But with you, he's different. He's himself." When Ryan returned, they walked Meg back to her hotel. She hugged Claire goodbye and whispered, "Take care of him." "I will." That night, Claire finally invited Ryan up to her apartment. It was small and modest compared to his properties, but he looked around with genuine interest at her bookshelves and framed photos, and the half-finished manuscript pages spread across her desk. "You're really doing it," he said, picking up a page. "Can I read some? It's rough." "I don't care." She let him read the first chapter while she made tea. When she returned, he was smiling. "Claire, this is beautiful. The way you describe things, the character's voice, you have real talent. You're biased. I'm honest. You should keep going with this." They sat on her couch, and the conversation turned more serious. "I need to tell you something," Ryan said. "The board has been pressuring me to take the company public. It would mean even more money, more growth, but also more scrutiny, more demands on my time. I've been putting off the decision for months." "What do you want to do?" "Honestly, I've been thinking about what you said at dinner that first night, about it not being too late to make changes. I don't want to spend the next 30 years building a bigger and bigger empire. I want to actually live my life." "What does that look like for you?" Ryan turned to face her. "I don't know exactly, but I know it includes you. These past few weeks with you, Claire, they've been the happiest I can remember. You make me want to be someone beyond my business cards and bank accounts." Claire set down her tea and moved closer. "You already are someone beyond those things. You're kind and funny and thoughtful. You're someone who remembers how I take my coffee and asks about my writing and makes me feel like I matter. You do matter. You matter so much." He kissed her then, and it felt different from before, more urgent, more certain. Claire kissed him back, her fingers threading through his hair as his hands settled on her waist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryan pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm falling in love with you," he said quietly. Claire's heart soared. "I'm falling in love with you too." They made love that night, slow and tender and achingly sweet. Afterward, lying tangled together in her bed, Claire traced patterns on Ryan's chest and felt more content than she ever had. "Stay," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." The next morning, they woke to rain pattering against the windows. Ryan made breakfast while Claire worked on her manuscript, and the domestic simplicity of it filled her with joy. This was what she'd been missing, she realized. Not just romance, but partnership, someone to share the quiet moments with. Over scrambled eggs and toast, Ryan brought up something that had clearly been on his mind. "I want you to meet my parents." Claire's stomach fluttered nervously. "Okay." "They're having a family dinner next weekend at their place in Connecticut. It's usually just close family, nothing fancy. Would you come with me? Are you sure? We've only been together a few weeks. I'm sure. I want them to meet the woman I'm in love with." The phrase still thrilled her every time he said it. "Then yes, I'd love to meet them." The week passed quickly. Claire continued writing, the pages accumulating into something that looked more and more like an actual novel. Ryan worked, but made time for lunches and evening walks. They fell into an easy rhythm, learning each other's quirks and habits and preferences. Friday evening, James drove them to Connecticut. The Whitmore family home was a sprawling colonial set on 10 acres of manicured grounds. Despite its size, it felt warm and welcoming when Ryan's mother answered the door. Patricia Whitmore was elegant and kind, pulling Claire into a hug before she'd even finished introducing herself. "We're so glad you could come. Ryan hasn't stopped talking about you." "Mom," Ryan protested, but he was smiling. His father, Robert, was quieter but equally warm. Over dinner, they asked Claire about her background, her family, her interests. They seemed genuinely curious rather than interrogating, and Claire found herself relaxing. "So you quit your job to pursue writing?" Patricia asked. "That takes real courage, or real foolishness." "The jury's still out. I think it's wonderful. Too many people stay in situations that make them miserable because change is scary. You chose possibility over certainty. That's admirable." After dinner, Ryan gave her a tour of the house, showing her his childhood bedroom with its posters of buildings and architecture books. "I was obsessed," he admitted. "I used to design imaginary cities, complete with zoning maps and public transportation systems." "That's adorable. That's nerdy. Adorably nerdy." They walked through the gardens as the sun set, and Ryan pulled her close. "Thank you for being here, for meeting them. They're wonderful. I can see where you get your kindness from. They really like you. My mom pulled me aside earlier and said, and I quote, 'T marry that one,' unquote." Claire laughed. "We've been dating less than a month." "I know. But when you know, right?" She looked up at him, this brilliant, successful, impossibly good man who somehow loved her back. "Right." The drive home was quiet, both of them lost in comfortable thoughts. When they reached Claire's apartment, Ryan came up without asking, and they fell into bed together, their lovemaking tender and profound. In the morning, Ryan had to leave early for a board meeting. He kissed Claire goodbye and promised to call later. "I love you," he said at the door. "I love you too." After he left, Claire made coffee and sat down to write. The words flowed like never before, her characters coming alive on the page. She was so absorbed that she didn't notice the time passing until her phone rang hours later. It was Ryan, but his voice sounded strained. "Hey, how's the meeting going?" "It went. Claire, can we talk? I'd like to come over." "Of course, is everything okay?" "Yeah. I just need to discuss something with you." He arrived 30 minutes later looking tired but determined. They sat on her couch, and Ryan took her hands. The board meeting was about the IPO. "They want an answer by end of month." "What did you tell them?" "I told them no, I'm not taking the company public. Actually, I'm restructuring everything. Promoting my COO to CEO, transitioning myself to chairman role. It means I'll still be involved in major decisions, but the day-to-day operations won't be my responsibility anymore." Claire stared at him. "Ryan, that's huge. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. I've spent 10 years building this company, and it's been successful beyond my wildest dreams. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I was doing it. I forgot to actually live. Meeting you reminded me that there's more to life than quarterly earnings and market share. But your work is important. You employ thousands of people. Your renewable energy division is making a real difference. And all of that will continue. Just without me running myself into the ground to manage every detail. I want time, Claire. Time to explore architecture again. Time to travel. Time to write if I feel like it or do nothing at all. Time with you." Tears pricked Claire's eyes. "I don't want you to give up everything for me." "I'm not giving up anything. I'm choosing what matters most. There's a difference." She kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude and hope into it. When they broke apart, she wiped her eyes and laughed. "We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both walking away from our careers. We're redefining success. Besides, I had an idea I wanted to run by you." "What kind of idea?" Ryan's expression turned slightly nervous. "You know how I mentioned wanting to get back into architecture? I've been thinking about starting a foundation. Something focused on affordable housing design, creating beautiful, sustainable spaces for communities that usually get overlooked. It would combine my business experience with my passion for design." "Ryan, that sounds incredible. I was hoping you might want to be involved. Not in the architecture side, obviously, but the foundation would need someone to handle communications, public relations, storytelling. You're a writer. You understand how to craft narratives that resonate with people." Claire's mind raced. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a partnership. In the foundation, I mean. Equal stake, equal say. We'd build it together." "I don't know anything about running a foundation." "Neither do I. We'd figure it out together, but only if you want to. If you'd rather focus on your novel, I completely understand." Claire thought about it. The novel was important, but so was making a difference in the world. and the idea of building something meaningful with Ryan, combining their skills and passions, sent excitement coursing through her. Can I do both? Work on the foundation and write. You can do whatever you want. That's the beauty of making our own rules. Then yes. Absolutely yes. They spent the rest of the day planning, ideas flowing fast and enthusiastic. Ryan sketched rough concepts for housing designs, while Claire took notes on messaging and outreach strategies. It felt creative and purposeful and right. Over the next few months, their lives transformed. Ryan officially transitioned out of his CEO role, and the announcement made waves in the business world. Several publications requested interviews, but he declined most of them, giving one carefully crafted statement about pursuing new directions and spending more time on philanthropic efforts. The foundation took shape slowly. They assembled a small team, found office space, began reaching out to communities in need. Ryan threw himself into design work with a passion Claire had never seen before, his eyes lighting up as he talked about solar panel integration and community garden spaces and flexible room configurations. Claire split her time between foundation work and writing. Her novel grew longer, more complex, more truthful. She wrote about second chances and courage and love that arrives when you least expect it. They were having lunch at a cafe near their office when Ryan suddenly went quiet, staring at something on his phone. "What's wrong?" Claire asked. "Nothing's wrong. Actually, something's very right. Remember that proposal we submitted for the Newark project? The affordable housing development, of course. We got it. The city council approved our bid. Claire, this is real. We're actually going to build something." They celebrated that night with champagne and takeout Chinese food eaten on Ryan's terrace overlooking the city. The lights spread out before them like possibilities made tangible. "I can't believe this is our life now," Claire said, leaning against Ryan's shoulder. "Better than 16-hour days and missed dinners. So much better. Although I do miss that blueberry muffin from the coffee shop. We could go get one tomorrow, relive our first meeting. Except now I know you're secretly a billionaire." "Secretly? I was never very good at hiding it," Claire laughed. "You wore the same blue shirt 3 days in a row that first week. I thought you were either very busy or owned 7 identical shirts. It's my favorite shirt, still is." She turned to look at him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being patient when I was too caught up in work to see what was right in front of me. For being honest about who you are. For building this life with me." Ryan set down his champagne and cupped her face in his hands. "Claire, you changed everything for me. Before you, I was successful but empty. Now I wake up excited about the day ahead. I have purpose beyond profit margins. I have someone to share everything with. You gave me that. We gave it to each other." He kissed her softly, then pulled back with a mischievous smile. "Want to hear something crazy? Always. That first day in the coffee shop when we reached for the same muffin, I saw you coming. I deliberately timed it so we'd reach for it at the same moment." Claire gasped. "You did not." "I absolutely did. I'd noticed you in the building for weeks, always rushing around looking stressed but beautiful. That morning I watched you get in line, saw you eyeing the muffins and made my move. Ryan Whitmore, you schemer. Desperate times. I've been trying to think of a way to talk to you for ages. You could have just said hello. Where's the romance in that?" Claire shook her head, grinning. "I can't believe you've been keeping that secret for months. I have other secrets too." Her smile faltered slightly. "Like what?" Ryan stood and pulled a small box from his pocket. Claire's heart stopped. "Like the fact that I've been carrying this around for 3 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment." He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring with a single diamond. "Claire, I know we've only been together for 6 months. I know some people would say it's too soon, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you. I want to build this foundation with you, build a life with you, build a future with you. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Claire's face as she nodded. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. They kissed as the city lights sparkled around them, and Claire felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The engagement sparked a whirlwind of activity. Ryan's parents were thrilled, immediately offering to help plan the wedding. Meg flew in from Portland and insisted on being maid of honor. Claire's parents drove down from Ohio, her mother crying happy tears the entire visit. They decided on a small ceremony, just close family and friends, to be held at Ryan's property in Westchester. The date was set for early fall, when the leaves would be turning and the weather would be perfect. Meanwhile, work on the Newark project began. Ryan spent long days at the construction site, hard hat on, reviewing plans with contractors and engineers. Claire saw a side of him she'd never witnessed before, completely in his element, directing workers and problem-solving on the fly. He was covered in dust and grinning like a kid. "You're really happy, aren't you?" she asked one afternoon visiting the site. "I forgot how much I love this. Creating something real, something that will actually house families and build community. This is what I should have been doing all along." The foundation started getting attention. A profile in Architecture Digest highlighted their innovative designs. A local news station did a piece on their community-focused approach. Inquiries came in from other cities interested in similar projects. Claire's novel was finished. She'd written the last word a week before the wedding, and the sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. She sent it to a literary agent Ryan's mother had connected her with, trying not to get her hopes up. The agent called 3 days later. "I love it. I think we can sell this." "Are you ready to be a published author?" Claire burst into tears. "Really? Really? Let me shop it around and see what interest we get." She told Ryan that evening, and he picked her up and spun her around the kitchen. "I knew it. I knew you were talented. It might not sell, she just said she'd try. It'll sell. And when it does, I'm throwing you the biggest celebration. You're a little biased. I'm a lot biased. I'm also right." The wedding day arrived with perfect autumn weather. The property looked magical, decorated with simple white flowers and elegant candles. Claire wore a flowing ivory dress that her mother had helped her choose, simple but beautiful. She walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and the moment she saw Ryan waiting for her, tears filled her eyes. He looked handsome in his dark suit, his expression full of love and wonder. They'd written their own vows. Ryan went first, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Claire, 6 months ago you fought me for a muffin and changed my entire life. You saw me, really saw me, when I'd gotten so used to being invisible behind my reputation and wealth. You reminded me that success isn't measured in dollars, but in moments of genuine connection. You made me brave enough to choose happiness over expectations. I promise to always be your partner, your supporter, your best friend. I promise to make you laugh, to listen when you need to talk, to give you space when you need to write. I promise to build a beautiful life with you, full of purpose and passion and endless love." Claire was crying openly now. She took a shaky breath and began her vows. "Ryan, I spent so many years thinking I had to sacrifice everything for my career. That success meant exhaustion and emptiness. Then I met you and realized I'd been settling for so much less than I deserved. You showed me what it means to be truly valued, truly cherished. You supported my dreams even when they were just whispers of possibility. You built a foundation with me, literally and figuratively, and made me believe I could be both a writer and a changemaker. I promise to always choose you, to support your passions, to be your safe place in this chaotic world. I promise to never stop being amazed by your kindness and strength. I promise to love you with everything I have, today and always. They exchanged rings, kissed as husband and wife, and walked back down the aisle hand in hand while their loved ones cheered. The reception was intimate and joyful. Meg gave a hilarious toast about Ryan's teenage awkwardness. Claire's sister shared embarrassing childhood stories. Ryan's father made everyone cry with his heartfelt words about watching his son find true happiness. Claire and Ryan danced their first dance to a jazz standard, swaying close while the sun set over the Hudson. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Whitmore?" Ryan murmured against her hair. "Like the luckiest woman alive. That's my line. We can both be lucky. Deal." They honeymooned in Italy. 2 weeks of wandering through ancient cities and eating incredible food and making love in beautiful hotels. Ryan sketched buildings while Claire wrote in cafes. They talked about the foundation's next projects, their families, their dreams for the future. "Do you want kids?" Ryan asked one morning over breakfast in Rome. Claire had been thinking about it too. "I do. Not right away, but someday. You? Definitely. I keep imagining a little girl with your smile or a boy we can teach to build things." "How many are we talking?" "2 or 3, enough to be chaotic but not overwhelming." "That sounds perfect." They returned to New York with renewed energy. The Newark project was progressing beautifully, the first phase of housing nearly complete. Claire's agent had submitted her novel to publishers, and there was already interest from 2 major houses. Life settled into a wonderful rhythm. They moved into a new apartment together, a spacious loft in Tribeca that Ryan renovated with Claire's input. She set up a writing office with huge windows and built-in bookshelves. He created a drafting space where he could work on architectural designs. The foundation expanded, taking on projects in 3 more cities. They hired additional staff, including a brilliant young architect from Howard University who brought fresh perspectives to their designs. Claire launched a blog documenting their work, telling the stories of the communities they served. It gained a substantial following, attracting donors and partners. Claire's novel sold in a preemptive offer. The publisher wanted it for their spring list and had big marketing plans. When Claire got the call, she was at the Newark site with Ryan for the ribbon-cutting ceremony on the first completed building. "I sold the book," she shouted over the crowd noise. Ryan picked her up and spun her around while their team cheered. "I told you, when's publication?" "Next May. We're definitely throwing a massive party." The Newark families moved into their new homes just before Thanksgiving. Claire and Ryan attended the community celebration, watching children run through the courtyards Ryan had designed, seeing parents gather in the common spaces Claire had helped conceptualize. An elderly woman approached them with tears in her eyes. "Thank you. I never thought I'd have a place this beautiful to call home." "You deserve it," Claire said, hugging her. "Everyone deserves a safe, beautiful place to live." That night, back in their apartment, Ryan pulled Claire onto the couch and wrapped his arms around her. "Today was a good day. The best. Seeing those families in their homes, knowing we helped create that. We're making a real difference, both of us, together." Claire turned to face him. Do you ever miss it? The corporate world, the power, being CEO. Ryan thought about it seriously. Not even a little. I miss the intellectual challenge sometimes, but the foundation provides that. And I don't miss the stress, the politics, the feeling that I was just making rich people richer. This work has meaning. Our life has meaning. I feel the same way. Sometimes I think about my old job, those insane hours and impossible demands, and I can't believe that was my life. This is so much better. Speaking of better, Ryan said, his expression turning mischievous. I have a surprise for you. What kind of surprise? He pulled out his phone and showed her an email. The architecture firm Henning and Associates reached out. They've been following the foundation's work, and they want to collaborate on a major sustainable housing project in Seattle. It's exactly the kind of large-scale impact we've been hoping to achieve. Claire read through the email, excitement building. Ryan, this is incredible. Seattle could be a model for other West Coast cities. I know, and there's more. They mentioned specifically that they love the storytelling aspect you've brought to our work. They want you to lead the community engagement and communication strategy. Me, but I'm still figuring this out. You're brilliant at it. You make people care, Claire. You show them the human side of what we do. That's invaluable. They spent hours that night discussing the Seattle opportunity, mapping out possibilities and potential challenges. It was the kind of conversation that energized them both, bouncing ideas back and forth, building on each other's thoughts. As fall turned to winter, their lives continued to flourish. Claire's novel went into galley production, and she held the physical proof copy like it was made of gold. The Foundation's Seattle project was approved, with construction slated to begin in spring. They spent Christmas with both families, hosting a huge dinner at their apartment. On New Year's Eve, they returned to the coffee shop where they'd first met. It looked exactly the same, still serving the same blueberry muffins. Should we recreate it? Claire asked, eyeing the pastry case. Only if I get to orchestrate the perfect timing again. They bought a muffin, split it, and sat at the same table they'd shared that first morning. The barrister recognized them and smiled. You two still come in together sometimes. I remember when you first started meeting here. You do? Claire was surprised. Of course. You'd light up whenever he walked in, and he'd always get here 10 minutes early watching the door. It was sweet. After she walked away, Claire raised an eyebrow at Ryan. 10 minutes early. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss you. You're such a romantic. Only for you. As midnight approached, they walked to Times Square, joining the massive crowd. It was chaotic and cold and perfect. When the countdown began, Ryan pulled Claire close. This year, I married the love of my life and started doing work that actually matters. Next year, we're going to reach even more people, make even more impact. But mostly, I just get to keep waking up next to you. That's all I need. I love you so much, Claire said, tears freezing on her cheeks. I love you more. Not possible. The ball dropped, and they kissed as the crowd roared around them. It was a kiss full of promise and joy and absolute certainty that they'd found something rare and precious and worth everything. Spring arrived with Claire's publication date. Ryan had indeed thrown a massive party, renting out a bookstore in Brooklyn and inviting everyone they knew. Claire's parents beamed with pride as she gave a reading from her novel. Meg flew in from Portland. Ryan's parents brought half their book club. The novel received strong reviews and solid sales. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it was a success, and Claire had already started working on her second book. She balanced writing with foundation work easily now, both pursuits feeding each other. The Seattle project broke ground in April. Claire spent 2 weeks there, meeting with community members and documenting their stories. The experience was profound, hearing how much this housing would change their lives. She wrote a piece for a national magazine about affordable housing as a human right, and it went viral. Ryan joined her for the second week, working directly with the construction team and local architects. They stayed in a small hotel near the site, and every evening they'd walk along Puget Sound, talking about the day's progress. "We should think about opening a West Coast office," Ryan said one evening. "We're getting so many inquiries from this region. That would mean a lot more travel, or we could split our time. A few months here, a few months in New York. We're not tied down yet." "Yet," Ryan stopped walking and turned to face her. "I've been thinking about what you said on our honeymoon, about kids." "What if we started trying?" Claire's heart skipped. They'd talked about it abstractly, but hearing him say it directly made it real. "You think we're ready?" "I think we're as ready as anyone ever is. We're stable, we're happy, we love each other. We've built a life with meaning and flexibility. Why wait?" Claire thought about a child with Ryan's blue eyes and kind smile. She thought about teaching them to be compassionate, creative, curious about the world. She thought about building something even more profound than affordable housing or published novels. "Okay," she said, "let's start trying." They made love that night with new intentionality, both of them aware that they might be creating a life. It was tender and profound and filled Claire with hope. Back in New York, life continued its beautiful rhythm. The foundation hired more staff to handle the growing workload. Claire finished her second novel, this one about a woman who builds housing for others while building a home in her own heart. Ryan designed a community center for the Newark project, complete with classrooms and a library. 3 months after Seattle, Claire took a pregnancy test. Her hands shook as she waited for the results. When the positive sign appeared, she stared at it for a full minute before running to find Ryan in his office. "We're pregnant," she said, holding up the test. Ryan's face transformed, pure joy spreading across his features. He stood, crossed to her, and pulled her into a gentle embrace. "We're going to be parents." "We're going to be parents," Claire repeated, and then she was crying and laughing at the same time. They told their families that weekend. Patricia cried and immediately started talking about baby names. Robert shook Ryan's hand with tears in his eyes. Claire's mother started planning to come stay when the baby arrived. Meg screamed so loud over the phone that Ryan had to hold it away from his ear. The pregnancy was relatively easy. Claire experienced morning sickness for a few weeks, but otherwise felt good. She continued working on the foundation's projects, scaling back gradually as her due date approached. Ryan was attentive without being overbearing, reading parenting books and setting up the nursery with careful attention to detail. They found out they were having a girl. Ryan cried when the ultrasound technician told them. "A daughter," he kept saying. "We're having a daughter." They chose the name Emma Rose, Emma for strength, Rose for beauty. Claire's second novel published when she was 7 months pregnant, and this time it did even better than the first. The reviews praised its heart and authenticity. Sales climbed steadily. Her agent was already talking about a third book. The foundation won an award from a national housing advocacy group. Ryan and Claire accepted it together. Claire visibly pregnant in a beautiful dress Ryan had helped her choose. Their acceptance speech focused on the communities they served, the team that made the work possible, the belief that everyone deserved dignity and beauty in their living spaces. Emma Rose Whitmore arrived on a snowy February morning, 3 years and 2 months after Claire had quit her advertising job. Labor was long and difficult, but the moment they placed their daughter in Claire's arms, every second of pain evaporated. She was perfect, tiny and wrinkled and perfect. Ryan sat on the hospital bed next to Claire, both of them staring at their daughter in awe. "We made her," Claire whispered. "We made her," Ryan agreed. "Look at her fingers, they're so small. She has your nose. She has your chin." They took turns holding Emma, neither wanting to put her down. When the grandparents arrived, there were more tears, more laughter, more overwhelming love. Meg showed up with balloons and a giant teddy bear. "I'm the cool aunt, just establishing that now." Those first weeks were exhausting and magical. Emma was a good baby, sleeping in reasonable stretches and only crying when she needed something. Claire and Ryan figured out routines together, sharing night feedings and diaper changes and the endless tiny tasks of caring for an infant. Ryan took paternity leave from the foundation, and they spent long days just being a family. Claire wrote when Emma slept, but mostly she just soaked in these precious early moments. Her third novel could wait. This was more important. When Emma was 3 months old, they took her to visit the Newark community. The families they'd helped house gathered around, cooing over the baby, sharing stories of their own children. The elderly woman who'd thanked them at the opening was there, holding Emma gently. "She's going to grow up knowing she can change the world," the woman said. "Look at what her parents built." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "We just want her to know she can be anything, do anything. That success means living according to your values." Ryan wrapped an arm around Claire's shoulders. Emma nestled between them. "We want her to know what real love looks like. Not the fairy tale version, but the everyday choosing each other version." That evening, back home with Emma asleep in her crib, Claire and Ryan sat on their terrace watching the city lights. "Do you remember what you said that first night I came over?" Ryan asked. "About falling. I remember. I feel like I'm still falling. Every day I fall a little more in love with you, with our life, with who we are together." Claire leaned against him. "I quit my job to make space for this. For you, for us, for something real. Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Ryan corrected. "Best was saying yes when I asked you to dinner." "Actually, best was splitting that muffin with you. We should get a muffin tomorrow. Take Emma to the coffee shop where it all started. She's too young to appreciate the significance." "We'll take her every year on this date, make it a tradition." Claire smiled. "I love that. I love you. I love you too, always." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city pulse with life below them. Somewhere in that vast urban landscape, other people were having their own moments of transformation. Quitting jobs that no longer served them, taking chances on love, building lives that aligned with their deepest values. Claire thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, exhausted and unfulfilled, checking work emails at midnight. She'd had no idea that walking into a coffee shop would change everything. That reaching for a muffin would lead to this extraordinary life. She thought about the foundation's expanding work, the families living in homes they'd helped create, the communities being transformed by thoughtful design and genuine care. She thought about her novels sitting on bookstore shelves, touching readers she'd never meet. She thought about Emma sleeping peacefully in the next room, a whole life of possibility ahead of her. Most of all, she thought about Ryan, the man who'd seen her when she was too busy to see herself, who'd loved her enough to be completely honest, who'd rebuilt his entire life to align with what truly mattered, who was now the father of her child and her partner in every sense of the word. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" for timing it perfectly that morning, for fighting me for that muffin, for being patient, for building this life with me. Ryan kissed the top of her head. Best position I ever offered anyone. Not at my company, but in my heart. Is that a reference to something? Just something someone might write as a headline someday. Billionaire offers woman position in his heart instead of his company. Claire laughed. That's terrible, but accurate. I offered you partnership in my foundation, but what I really offered was partnership in everything. My heart, my life, my future. And I accepted. Best business decision I ever made. They smiled at each other, and then Emma's cry came through the baby monitor. Ryan stood immediately. I'll get her. You've been up with her all day. We'll both go. They walked inside together, partners in this like they were in everything. Emma settled as soon as Claire picked her up, her tiny fingers wrapping around Claire's thumb. Ryan wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood there in the soft light of the nursery, a family. Outside, the city continued its endless motion. Inside, everything was exactly as it should be. Claire had quit her job to date him, and the billionaire had offered her something far better than any position at his company. He'd offered her love, partnership, purpose, and a life beyond anything she'd imagined possible. She'd accepted, and in doing so, had found not just romance but her truest self. Together, they were building something that would outlast quarterly earnings and job titles. They were building a legacy of love, meaningful work, and the unwavering belief that everyone deserved beauty and dignity in their lives. Emma yawned, her eyes fluttering closed. Ryan hummed softly an improvised lullaby. Claire swayed gently, memorizing this moment. This was success, not the corner office or the impressive title. Not even the published books or the award-winning foundation. This quiet moment, the three of them together, choosing love and purpose and each other every single day. Claire smiled, kissed her daughter's forehead, and felt profoundly, completely grateful for the day she'd reached for a blueberry muffin and found her entire future.